Hi, welcome to HTM Hackers Hangout. I'm Matt Taylor from Numenta. It's April 6th, 2018. I'm going to go over a few topics and we'll cover some things that came up on the forum, and then we'll open it up if anyone else wants to talk about anything at all. Apologize up front if my computer fan suddenly gets loud. That keeps happening. Okay, so if you guys, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see, application window. This is the one. This is the one. Okay. See the forum, right? Okay, so Jeff is talking at this Berkeley thing, the Simmons Institute. One of these videos has already been shared on the forum by somebody else, by someone else who's presenting there. Anyway, he's talking at that in 10, 11 days. After that, I'm going to do another one of these HTM chats with him coming up in a month or two. And we're going to sit down and I'm going to talk about some specific topics. And like I did last time, I'll go over, I might as well. I'll go over what I'm going to ask him about. I'm going to talk to him about location cells, obviously, all the different types of location cells. Not all of them and specifically, but why there's so many different types. What do we have to model every single type? You know, stuff like that. How are they expressed in HTM? How are they expressed in HTM neurons and dendrites? How are they expressed in layers? Or what do they express in layers? What are the processes occurring in layers that depend on grid cells or location cells? So those sorts of questions. I'm going to ask him about different brain areas like the hippocampus and the thalamus. What's the hippocampus doing? How's it contributing to neocortical function? How do they think that they're relating together when things are actually happening? Same thing with the thalamus. Any new clues on what's going on with that relay or what we think it might be doing? And then I'm going to talk to him about oscillations, because I think oscillations are interesting. Is it a process? Is it a signal? Is it a signal processing itself? I don't know. Is it some indication of attention? There are different types of oscillations in the brain. Why are there different types, and what could they be doing? So some high-level stuff like that, and then again, I'll talk about object representation, because for the longest time I described it as it's very tempting to want to describe how object representation in your brain works by saying it's everything that you've sensed at some location in space, you know, and some model in your brain. And I wanted it to be like that, but it's just not like that, because I think it's so intricately tied to motor. It's not stored like that in your brain. It's more about transformations. So I want Jeff to help me understand that, so others can understand it. So that's what I'm gonna talk to him about. And I'm going to start a topic on the forum like I've done in the past to ask you guys what you want me to talk to him about as well. Okay, I'm almost done. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It just made me think. I want to come up with a good question, but
you can't.
Let me silence myself so you don't hear myself talk.
Okay. Am I sharing my screen again now? Okay, so the other couple things was it came up here that Mark asked. That's Mark Brown, yeah. Anachronisms from earlier versions of HTM theory and BAMI are sort of like what's old and what's new, what's replaced it. So this is it's hard. What I can definitely tell you is we don't use the backtracking temporal memory at all in any new stuff. We use just the temporal memory algorithm. But there's not a lot of stuff that we have just, I mean, all of BAMI is still relevant for the most part. I don't think anything will send anyone off course. So the old white paper, the old white paper, I think we tried to remove, links to that for the most part. That's misleading, but that's just because it's old. But I don't think anything, do you think of anything, Marcus, that's hanging out there that's sort of old and faded?
Well, I couldn't tell by the question if it was asking about before the, about what has changed between the white paper and BAMI or between BAMI and now. Between BAMI and now, pretty much nothing has changed. It's just where researching more things that will eventually end up in BAMI as additions. Between the white paper and BAMI, they're really quite similar. The biggest difference is, I would say, what used to be called the temporal pooler, we now call temporal memory. The term temporal pooling, we just think of that as something different than what Numenta people thought in 2011. Otherwise, the only change in the algorithm is that it used to be that the temporal memory, which used to be called the temporal pooler, would try to do multi-step prediction. It would try to learn if something was predicted correctly, it would try to get where it could predict it one step earlier and then one step earlier, such that you could look at like the predictions of the temporal memory to figure out what's going to happen like 6 steps from now or 5 steps from now. It used to do that, and that was in the white paper that it did that, and that's no longer true. So really just like that difference in the algorithm and just like the naming of them those are the main changes. We've tweaked how boosting works in the spatial pooler since we did that like roughly a year and a half ago. Yue did some good work on that while working on the spatial pooler paper, but that's really that's not like a fundamental algorithm change. It's just like kind of the math of how you choose how much to boost each column. So
yeah, we updated Sorry, we updated BAMI with that tweak to boosting too, I believe.
Yeah.
So we're trying to keep BAMI up to date.
Yeah, I would say it is up to date to my knowledge.
For the most part, everything coming out of research is an extension to HTM. There's nothing crucial. Our core is changing. I mean, you'd say everything we have right now that's implemented up to NUPIC is just foundational to what comes next. So no major changes. Okay, other thing is, this is such a pain. Share my screen, hold on. Which people made the internet easier. So he also said, because I was asking people who's currently building HTM systems, and he thought, I'm getting good feedback on that, thank you. I haven't really gone over all these different HTM systems on a Hackers Hangout before, but there's a bunch of different HTM systems, and some of these are pretty cool. Like this one is not too old. I mean, 2 years old is not too old. Some of these have been around for 7 years. But I remember when this came out, it had really nice documentation, so I linked to that. Some of these are like implementations of before we even went open source. Like I know a couple of these old C++ ones were 5 years old. You know, this was before we even went open source. Several of them are. And the guys that were working on these, like that was Michael Ferrier. He eventually came over and started talking on the forum and working on other things. There's a few interesting JavaScript ones, including HTM.js, which Paul Lamb wrote. He's on the call right now. And these are cool because I've got a ton of JavaScript visualizations that I used in HTM school that I can just attach to this pretty easily. So I'm investigating some of these, especially there's another JavaScript one that somebody just posted that I don't have linked here, but and there's all of these Java-based ones. Here's Cortex. You guys haven't used this for a while, but it's a very cool closure version of library. Felix Andrews and recently Fergal was working on it. I know Marcus has worked on this before.
You're kind of mixing two up. Fergal mostly worked on Cortex. Felix built Comportex, which is further down the list.
Thank you.
I helped Felix with that. He's the main person who really did Comportex. Both of us did a lot of work together on Comportex Viz, the visualization for it, though he originated that as well.
Thank you for correcting me. That's absolutely right. This is the closure one. The other one was Fergal's Cortex, and I don't think that Cortex one is complete, but the Comportex one certainly is. And there's that's where a bunch of cool visualizations came from, and sort of the story of how we got Marcus evolves from there too. Anyway, Oh, the reason I brought this up is because I'm working on a project I'm going to show you real quick. It's an interactive document called Building HTM Systems. And I'm going to go over from scratch how to basically program HTM. I'm going to break it up into encoding, strategies, spatial pooling, and temporal memory for the most part. I haven't done any of the encoding stuff, but you can imagine there being like an implementation of a number encoder. Here's where I pushed it. I want to show you what I'm thinking here. Like for the spatial pooler, the first thing you have to start thinking about is receptive fields for your mini columns to the input space. And so you want to know what that means. And so I've made all of this totally interactive. As you're running across parameters, I'm going to display what changes to those parameters might mean. For example, there's many different ways you could set your connection threshold and your connection, your permanence distribution initially, so that you want to get this so that learning occurs when time starts flowing. So I want to have these embedded interactive visualizations as we go along. So I'm putting a lot of time into this right now, and I haven't shared it on the forum yet. It's at htmtheory.org, but here's a sneak peek for you guys if you're watching. But I'm planning on putting, these widgets together that work together, so the whole page tells a story about a set of configurations and how they relate to, the cells that are being created and their states over time. Okay, that's it for me. I think that's all I wanted to talk about. Let me turn this off. So I'm opening it up to the floor. If anyone has something to say, now's the time.
The thing I have to say is that my project is still coming along great. I work on it every single day, but it's still months away from. But you guys are going to love it. It's so good. It's so great. But it's still it's too far. It always feels like it's 3 months from done. And it's felt like that for 2 years now. But I'm hopeful that someday it will actually be done. But I already have great, great, great stuff. If I came in today, I would have fun things to show you. But it's better if I wait until it's done.
Okay, Glenn, looking forward to it. What about you, Gary? I saw your really interesting program. I was talking to the guys before this started. I think that having a pet project like that is just really intriguing, and you can tell you put a ton of work and thought into it, and the visualizations are great, and all the configurations. I mean, that's all custom stuff. Obviously, as a software developer, I recognize the work that goes into that. That's pretty cool stuff. Probably because it doesn't get his mic working. So, you want to say anything, Paul? Nope. Marcus? All right. Bye, guys. It's been a pleasure. See you on the forums.
Yep.